this lesson is meant to be fun. It's meant to be a break in kind of what we've been doing, and it's called Basic Constructions. It's the last lesson of Unit 1. Now I'm going to teach you in this lesson how to use your contractor here. So these are called constructions, and with constructions you need 3 things to kind of create these different pictures with your contractor. You need a protractor, a compass, and a pencil. Now a protractor is what's around the edge here of your contractor. It measures how many degrees an angle is. A compass, it creates like circles and arcs, and that's what like these little radius holes are for. You can like make big arcs, big circles with these things. You take care of these 2 tools with this one guy right here. It's these 2 things in one, and that's why we call it a contractor. Very trusty little tool. Do not lose it, because if you do, you have to pay for a new one. I need to figure out how much they cost this year. It kind of varies from year to year, and I've yet to hear, but usually it's like $2 or $3. I'm not going to write that down because then you'll quote me. But just know if you lose it, you have to buy a new one. So you don't want to do that. Just hang on to it. You use it all year. There's 4 types of constructions I'm about to show you. There's more to come in the future, but for today, okay, the first 2 are about copying a segment and an angle. And on every single example, I'm going to show you one way. I'm going to show you one example, I should say, and then you're going to try your own. Okay, you're going to copy the process that I do, though. It's good to have it on video because you can watch it again if you need to. So the first one is you want to copy a segment. So basically this segment they give you, I want to copy it and make my own that's identical off to the right here. So to do that, and if you're making your own picture, if you're copying something, I want to just draw my own drawing off to the right. So I just draw this same segment, like going in the same direction. I don't know how long it is yet, so I'm just going to like do a line that's longer than I need it to be. And for the sake of me explaining this to you, I'm just going to call the endpoints here like A and B. So here's my A. I've got the left endpoint. That's good to go. I just need to figure out where do I put B so that way it's the exact same length as this segment right here. And you're going to do that without like actually measuring using the ruler. The compass part, all these little holes, that's what we're going to use to measure, which seems silly to a lot of us, but just roll with it. Okay, so to measure using all of these holes, there's this brass circle here, and you kind of use that to navigate most of this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the brass circle on left endpoint A of the original picture, and then I put my finger over that and hold it down. And when you hold that down, this slides real easily. So all these little radius holes, some are numbered, some aren't. So what you're going to do is slide your contractor and find one of these little radius holes that goes right over point B. And we should all have the same one. Let's see, that's 48, 47, 46. That's 45. And guys, pencil works way better when you're using a contractor just because you can sharpen it and it goes through the little radius holes easier. I forgot a pencil at school, so I'm stuck with pen. But use pencil if you have it. So this was 45, that hole. Okay, it's helpful to write that so that way you remember it, but you don't have to do that part. Now, rule of thumb with contractors, make your marks bigger than they need to be. Too many people just go like, oh, 45 and then put a little dot. No, make a nice big arc so you can actually tell that it went through that endpoint. Now all I have to do is slide the brass circle to my endpoint A and make that same arc at 45. And where the blue arc met my segment, my pink segment here, that's where I should put B. Got my 2 endpoints, segment is copied. Okay, I want you guys to do the same process for this segment. And I'm going to show you how to copy an angle. So it's the same idea, I just want to recreate this angle over here off to the right. Okay, for the sake of explaining, I'm going to label A and like B, C maybe, but you don't have to do that part when you go to do this on your own. If you're copying a picture, you want to make your own off to the right. So I start the same way, and I'm going to draw this bottom ray off to the right here. Doesn't matter how long, make it longer than it needs to be when in doubt. And that's the vertex, A. Here's my A. All I need to do is figure out where to draw the other ray, and I have the angle. So to do that, this is like the hardest construction I think to remember, but to do that, come to the original picture and put the brass circle on the vertex and hold it down. Then you pick any radius hole. I usually stick with like 30, 40, or 50 just because they're numbered, they're at the top, they're easy to remember. So why don't we all do 30? And you just make a big arc. Again, better to be bigger rather than smaller. Make a big arc at 30. I'll mark it just so you know. Make it long enough so that way your arc hits both rays of your angle. Come over here and make the exact same arc on your picture. So put the brass circle on A, make an arc at 30. I have this point right here now. There's B. We'll call that C. I just need to figure out where C goes on my blue arc, and then I can finish the angle. So I need to measure from B to C. To do that, you don't use the ruler, you use the radius holes. So you put the brass circle on one end point, and you match up the radius hole with the other end point. So put the brass circle on B, figure out which hole matches up, and now, I'm glad this worked out this way because I need to show you this part, but 20, whatever that is, 21, that's the smallest hole on like the rectangular part of your contractor, but it's too big. So see how there's these holes inside the circular part? These are smaller, and I need to use these to find and match up point C. So if you hold down like where all the holes are and then move the circular part around, it moves pretty easily. And it looks like maybe 18, maybe even 17. That's pretty close. Let's go 17. So I'm gonna make a little mark just to be safe. Yeah, 17 like went right through point C. So I'm gonna put the brass circle on my point B and mark 17 on my drawing. And where those guys met, that's my point C. So now I can finish my angle. I just need to connect C and A, and that's where my second ray is. Yep. I kind of missed, but that's good enough. Okay, so now I want you guys to try the one at the bottom. I'm gonna flip it over and look at the back. The last two constructions talk about bisectors. You may have never heard that word before, so let's go ahead and define it. A bisector is really similar to a midpoint, guys. We talked a lot about midpoints a few lessons ago, but there's a couple differences I want to point out. So difference number one, a midpoint is on a line. A bisector goes through a line. Difference number two, midpoint is a noun. It's a thing. It's a point in the middle of a line. Bisect, on the other hand, is a verb. It's an action. Okay? And the specific action that it is it cuts something in half. That's the easiest way to think of it. Difference number three, midpoints are specific to lines. So midpoints can only lie on a line or a line segment, but a bisector can be found with lines and angles. Okay, ignore this guy right here. Word document, typo, that shouldn't be there. All right, in other words, and that's a lot of words right there, bisect just means cut in half. Midpoints cut line segments in half. Bisectors can cut anything in half, lines and angles. So basically, construction number three is you're going to construct a perpendicular bisector. Now, if you don't know what perpendicular means, perpendicular lines, hopefully you remember this from algebra, they're lines that meet at a right angle. So 90 degrees. So they're going to be like a perfect cross like that. Bisect means cut in half. So basically, I need to create a line on this line segment right here that's cutting it in half at a right angle. So what I'm about to draw or construct is going to look kind of like this. This one, I need to cut this segment in half at a right angle. Okay, that's my goal. I'm going to make a note about how to remember this one after we construct it, but here's how you construct a perpendicular bisector. So again, let me just label the points A and B for the sake of explaining. So I'm going to do this first one, you're going to do number 2. You don't have to create your own picture on this one because you're not constructing your own segment. I'm just drawing a line that's going to cut this AB in half. So I do my picture right on here. Put your brass circle at A, hold it down, pick a radius hole that goes over halfway. So I'm going to do like 40 is probably safe. And then you make a big arc. So I did 40. And here it says it's a good idea to put the markings to show you understand what you just constructed. That just means like make your big arcs. If you don't make those, I mean, I don't know how you would really do it very accurately anyways, but I'm not going to think you did it right, or at least use the correct tool. So make all the marks is all that means. Then shift your contractor around, and if you need to turn your paper, do it, but put your brass circle at B and make the exact same arc at 40. Make sure you remember the number you used, otherwise you won't do this correctly. Okay, when you've done that, you've created this like fish looking thing. I don't know if you see what I'm talking about, but it kind of looks like a fish, so that's how I always remember this one. Perpendicular bisector is the fish thing. Your little fish is going to connect in 2 places, and if you just connect those 2 points, that's the perpendicular bisector. Right there. So this pink line here, it's cutting AB in half, so that's the midpoint, and it's doing it at a right angle, so that's 90 degrees right there. Okay, you try number 2, and let me show you the last one here. I want to make an angle bisector. So basically, I just want to draw a line, and it's going to be cutting the angle in half, so it's like right down the middle of the angle. Here's how you do this. Honestly, I'm going to turn my paper upside down, or at least turn it like this, so the angle kind of looks like this. Do that with me. The idea is very similar, so you don't have to create your own picture. You're just going to do it right on the one they give you. You put the brass circle at the end point. You pick any radius hole. I stick with 30 and 40. Let's go 30. Make the arc big enough so it hits your ray in, or hits both rays, I should say, in one place. Then what you do is you take your brass circle to one of the intersection points, maybe down here, and you make, ooh, bad glare. I'm going to stick with 30 all the way through. I'm going to make an arc out here in space at 30. Then I'm going to take the brass circle to the other intersection point and make the same arc at 30 so it intersects the mark I just made. And it'll look something like this. Where those little marks out in space met, you want to connect that to your vertex. Draw your line there, more like a ray. And that's your perpendicular bisector. Your angle bisector, not perpendicular. Duh. So that line right there is cutting your angle in half. It's right down the middle. Okay, so you tried the last one, and that completes Unit 1.